Good morning. Welcome to the King's Report News Hour for the 16th year of Changi, the ninth month, and I'm smiling because I did a check before we came on. I have to go for a look. 24th day. Uh, Need to remember to check these things before we start. 24th day by the heavenly calendar in the ninth month. And let's see, this is the 16th year of Changi, and we're approaching Children's Day. That will be a week from today. Yes. All right, let's get to it here. Let's go and I was too busy drinking my coffee, enjoying the taste. This is the stuff that's supposed to cause you cancer. No, might as well enjoy it. All right, Chongpyeong, Tennessee, 32 degrees, mostly clear, and sun through high clouds today, high of 61. Tonight, clear and partly cloudy, low of 32. And then at the Cheonggyeong Palace, wait, what happened to Father's hometown? Something didn't work here. You know what? Okay, I think all right. Let me bring that up. Uh, Hold on just a second. Can't. Let's see here. A new tab to the right. Okay. Oh, isn't it? I'm supposed to do it. Okay. Here's something that's missing. Chungju. Gyeongwon-Pukto, KP. Here we go. Okay, that's it. Okay. 34 degrees in Father's hometown of Cheongju right now. Getting down to 29 tonight with clear skies tomorrow. Plenty of sunshine, high of 54. And then let's go to the Cheonggyeong Palace in northeast Pennsylvania. 42 degrees and mostly cloudy right now. A morning shower in the area, otherwise breezy with times of clouds and sun, high of 51 tonight. Partly cloudy and breezy with a flurry or two, 33. Yes. When they say breezy in Pennsylvania, that means watch out for the falling trees and the branches. And then at the Liberty Rock RV Park and Campground in Limestone County, Texas, 53 and mostly clear. 80 degrees for a high today, mostly sunny and breezy. Don't worry about the falling trees there. There are trees, but not that many, not nearly as many. Tonight, breezy this evening, otherwise clear, low of 60. And then at the Suncheon Palace in Korea, clear and 50 degrees. And then tonight, a low of 38. Tomorrow, plenty of sunshine, high of 63. At the Gunma Palace is in Japan, mostly cloudy and 53 right now, partly cloudy tonight, getting down to 46. Tomorrow, sunshine and a few clouds, high of 65. Guangzhou, Guangdong Province, 68 and overcast, breezy this evening. And I have no idea. I think I was in Guangzhou once, but I was not paying attention to the trees. Breezy this evening, otherwise cloudy, low of 65. Tomorrow, after a cloudy start, sun returns, high of 80 degrees. Okay, and let's go to Father's Word here. You know what? I was going to take something from Scripture today. Let me see what that was. Hmm. I don't know what. Okay. All right, let's just go to change on going. Okay. All right. And here, Father, we're in the book on the Pan-Pacific Providence, chapter 3. And Father, the title of the chapter is The Era of the Pan-Pacific, or the Pan-Pacific Era, and the founding of the Island Nations Federation, Island Nations Federation. I think the official name may have been the Island Nations Federation for World Peace, but that piece is somehow missing from this time of year. All right, Father here speaking, October 28th, 1991. Okay. And he says here, the Unification Church is the third son, third son. Um, So the Unification Church was born as the most precious of all sons. 이제 기독교 문명을 통일적인 내용으로 소화시켜. So the Unification Church is going to absorb or digest is the word he uses, digest the Christian civilization in a unified content, 쿠라파를 하나로 화합하고, and then to unite Europe as one. Kurapa it's an old word for Europe. 쿠라파를 하나로 화합하고 남북미를 화합할 수 있는 것은 기독교 문명밖에 없습니다. So that only the Christian civilization sphere can unite Europe as one and also unite North and South America as one. 그런데 서양의 기독교 문명권이 아시아로 넘어오고 있습니다. But the Christian civilization realm of the West is coming over to Asia. 그렇다면 기독교 사상을 통하여 하나님이 통일적인 방안을 수습하여 오는 것을 아시아는 어디에서 맞을 것이나. So if God is bringing a unifying plan through Christian thought or Christian philosophy, then where in Asia can receive that? Japan, 일본은 잡도를 섬기고 있고, so Japan, Father would often say, is a pagan. They worship pagan idols, and of course, yeah, well, they do. You know, Shinto has, well, they say 8 million gods. Of course, that's a symbolic figure. It means infinite number of gods. Every tree, every rock has a god in it. 잡도를 섬기고 있고, so Japan worships pagan or pagan religion, and 중국과 소련은 공산화되었고, China and the Soviet Union have become communist. 단 하나 남아있는 한국은 교파 싸움은 하고 있어도 기독교라는 울타리권 내에 있습니다. So the one remaining place with Korea, although there is a lot of fighting among denominations, still it is within the still within the fence that we call Christianity. So within the hedge of protection, I guess, or it was, but anyway, he's calling it the fence here. 비록 종자나무로서 심을 수는 없지만 불뗄나무로서는 필요합니다. Okay. 종자나무로서 심을 수는 없지만, so Korea cannot be used as a seedling tree, I guess, seedling tree, but it can be used to make a fire, can be burned. So he's talking about sacrificing Korea, I guess. It's no good as a seedling tree, but you can use it to light a fire. All right. Well, yeah. You know, right now, a lot of conservative. I see a lot of conservatives on X right now are lamenting the fact that South Korea's president has declared that basically that sort of false information is going to be criminalized, and police are going to be going after people for false information and hate speech and false information. And you may think that Korea is sort of learning from Europe in this sense, but actually not. I remember when I first came to Korea in 1978, 79, and into the sort of first half of the 1980s, especially under the Usean Constitution, which was in effect from 72 to 79, it was actually a criminal offense to criticize the government or to say anything that was inconvenient for the government. Anything that the government said, no, that's not true. We don't want that to be true. That was criminal, and people could be and were taken away by police for things that they might say, for example, around the water cooler. Although I don't, Korean offices really didn't have water coolers, but basically, in the office or um, in the local coffee shop or something like that, people were actually taken away. And um, as I mentioned, I think last time or a few days ago, anytime someone was taken away by the police, the first thing that would happen to them when they were in the police station was that they get beaten. And the police would start beating them. That was the first sort of step in any kind of interrogation back then. So now, of course, back then, of course, it was the leftists that were on the receiving end of that. But now that they're in power, Lee Jae-myung is going back to that formula, it seems, where anything that the government does not like is going to be labeled as either hate speech or misinformation or rumor or something like that. And people perhaps are going to be punished criminally for that. We'll have to see how that is actually carried out. But there does seem to be kind of a rhyming of history going on here, and we'll have to wait and see. Of course, there is one group. There is one group that it's okay to hate. there's one group that you won't get punished if you hate them. I'm not going to name the group because I don't want to give anybody any ideas, but you guys know who it is. Father would say that he was the most criticized person in the world. And also, Jesus was probably the most criticized person or most attacked person in the world at that time. And that's kind of part of comes with the job of being a Messiah, I guess, that you take on you absorb the hatred of the world, and you absorb it, you take it on, and you kind of digest it, and uh, you survive through it, and you save the world. And that seems to be the job description, or part of the job description of the Messiah. Anyway, so we can always have that function for the sake of the world, I think. All right, let's see. Now, of course, what's happening in America, 43 days. The government shutdown has been resolved after 43 days. The Senate House passed the bill. President Trump has signed it, and now the U.S. government, beginning today, I guess today is going to be the first full day of work after 43 days. And I've said already that I don't get involved in numbers. Father's the numbers guy, all right? And I don't get involved in numbers because I saw many times where someone would try to get involved with numbers when father was in his physical body. And if father was there, he would say, you don't know what you're talking about. So anything I say, probably father would not approve. But and yet, we cannot just sort of ignore the fact that this was 43 days, all right? 43 days of a struggle, basically between God's side and Satan's side, right? Not that Trump is perfect; he's not a saint, and I don't agree with everything that he's doing. You know that, and yet he's on the able side, or relative to the Democrats. Certainly, he's closer to God, and he's on the heavenly and able side. And Democrats, there are some good people, and I'm sure there's good in every one of them. But still, relatively, they were certainly on the Cain side, and they are on the Cain side and on Satan's side. And so this was a struggle, and it ended with the complete victory of Trump. and the able-sided, and as the Senator Agnes King was saying yesterday, Angus King was saying yesterday, it has made President Trump even more powerful. Kind of a, I guess, kind of a Jacob at the Fort of Jabbok. I don't know. I hope it doesn't go to his head. But it always does, and it will go to his head. I'm sorry, but politicians, every time they win, they take it. It goes to their head without exception. I have not seen any exception until now, where a politician could store a big victory and then not let it go to his head, and then that victory would then lead to a later defeat and failure later on. It happens again and again and again. I just hope it doesn't happen to President Trump this time. But I guess perhaps flights are going to start getting back to normal. Perhaps people are going to be receiving their food stamps. But we will see what kind of effect, the long-term effect this has, not only on the budget, but also on President Trump and his conduct. And let's pray that he can remain humble. I think that is the most important thing for him to keep in mind right now, and perhaps for us to keep in mind as well as we are praying for him. Now, I see here that the Supreme Court on January 21st is going to hear arguments on whether President Trump has the power to just go around firing the Federal Reserve Board governor. And if he wins that would, of course, be another significant increase in his power. The Supreme Court will hear oral arguments January 1 on whether President Trump has the authority to remove Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook. And Lisa Cook is a leftist, and President Trump would very much like to see her removed so that he can nominate a conservative person in her place. Trump announced her firing in August, citing allegations that she committed mortgage fraud involving 2 properties she owns. Cook, the first Black woman to serve on the Fed's Board of Governors, denies the claims and has filed suit to block her removal. CNBC reported that in early September, a federal district judge in Washington ruled that Cook could not be dismissed while her case proceeds. The U.S. Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia later upheld that decision, prompting Trump to ask the Supreme Court to intervene. District Judge Gia Cobb wrote in her opinion that Cook had shown a strong likelihood of success in her argument that her firing violated the Federal Reserve Act's for cause provision. Cobb said the law limits dismissal to issues related to behavior in office, and that the allegations against Cook predate her time on the board. So it doesn't matter if you committed murder before you got on the board. Once you're on the board, you're there for good. The Solicitor General, so that's the guy that argues the case for the government, D. John Sauer, representing the Trump administration, argued in filings that Cook lacks a constitutional property right to retain her position while litigation continues. He maintained that the law gives the president discretion to remove a governor for any stated cause relating to conduct, ability, fitness, and competence. The Supreme Court's ruling could clarify the scope of presidential authority over independent financial regulators. The Department of Justice has opened a criminal investigation into whether Cook committed mortgage fraud in connection with homes she owns in Michigan and Georgia. Grand jury subpoenas were reportedly issued in both states after the Federal Housing Finance Agency referred the matter for prosecution. Okay. And this, of course, is also ironic because the federal prosecutor, or state prosecutor, I guess, in New York, tried to get President Trump on mortgage fraud and failed. Now, these leftists, including the prosecutor in New York who tried to get President Trump, is also being charged or is under allegations of mortgage fraud. And now this Federal Reserve governor is also being charged with mortgage fraud. And so, yes, it is very interesting. And we'll see how this whole thing plays out between now and next November when the midterm elections are held. All right, let's see here. Now, not a whole lot of news this morning. Um, let me see here. As the day begins, perhaps I think people were so focused on the shutdown that they're kind of now waking up and say, well, what are we going to talk about now? There's nothing else to talk about. Okay, so Trump signed that, and and the Epstein files become a fiasco of Trump's own making, according to Axios. Well, it's interesting that the Democrats had these files for at least 4 years, and they didn't do anything with them during that time. But now that they're desperate to find something, anything against President Trump, they seem to be sort of creatively using these. I think that's the word to use. Twisting things around so to try and get something that might stick against President Trump. Okay. And let's see here. The 2026 Democrats aren't happy with the shutdown deal. It's interesting that Democrats right now are basically sort of divided. The so the younger and more radical Democrats are extremely angry at the Senate Democrat senators um, who went along with the Republicans, and especially angry against Chuck Schumer. Even though Schumer did not vote in favor of the Republican bill, still they blame him for not keeping the Democrats together in opposing that bill. So we will see, and I think we keep seeing rumors that the AOC may challenge Schumer in the Democrat primary next year, or not next, yeah, I guess, yeah, next year, yes, to try and become senator. So now she's just a member of the House of Representatives from the Bronx. But wow, if she becomes senator, of course, she'll have much more influence over policy. So I don't know if that's a good thing or not. Anyway, God's will be done on there. Okay. Yeah. Let's see here. Some South Korean workers return to Georgia factory after U.S. reissues visas. That whole sort of really catastrophe there. Uh, there are certain incidents that reverberate for a long time, and I think this is going to be one of those. What am I supposed to do here to prove that I'm slide right to complete the puzzle? Oh, I see. I'm supposed to make that fit. Okay. Oop, the position of the slide is not. Okay, well, let's try it again. Okay. Come on, it's got to be exact. It looks good to me. What are you talking about? All right, we'll try it just one more time. Ah, forget it. Okay. That's that's crazy. I was right all three times, but the AI. Uh, I'm sorry, Hal. I cannot open the pod bay door. Oh yeah, we're in trouble. We're in trouble. We're gonna have to start sliding right. Uh, I guess I'm not accustomed to doing those dating apps. I guess where you slide right or slide left, right? I've never done that. So I guess people who are accustomed to that are able to do this. Okay. All right. All right. All right. Let's see here. So we can't go to the New York Times because we can't slide right properly. Anyway, what was I trying to do here? Oh yeah, the South Korean workers returning to Georgia. Yeah, I hope that situation works out because South Korea is sliding left. Actually, it's South Korea is sliding left towards communism at a pretty pretty quick rate. And the things that former President Yoon was warning about, and the things that he was listing as his justification for attempting a coup, are actually coming true. But I think it proves that it's not enough just to know what's happening. You have to know how to counter it, and you have to have wisdom in countering it. And I think Yoon did not have wisdom, and especially the really incredibly sloppy way in which he attempted the coup. Not just sloppy, but incredibly amateurish way in which he attempted the coup. Really showed his incompetence as a dictator. Hey, listen, it takes a certain amount of skill to be a dictator, all right? People like Stalin, Lenin, Kim Il Sung, Kim Jong Il, I don't know about Kim Jong Un, but especially the first generation. You got Mao Zedong, right? And even Xi Jinping right now, they're very skilled at being dictator, at exercising power as a dictator. Yoon completely failed. I mean, the idea that it took about a half an hour, right, to get the military to the National Assembly to shut down and basically failed to shut down the National Assembly, which gave them the opportunity to vote to cancel the coup d'etat by majority vote. Come on, it took them a half an hour to get there. I mean, and obviously the military really their hearts were not in it. I was watching it on television, and the soldiers were sort of trying to make their way through the hall, and bumping into people and saying, "Oh, excuse me! Oh, excuse me! Oh, please let me through! Please let me through!" trying to get to the chamber, and it was pretty ridiculous, pretty ridiculous. And of course, now a lot of people are being charged, and uh, there's a big purge that is going on. And well, that's the way politics is done in this country. It is a revenge politics, as I've mentioned before, is very much in the tradition of this country, and so that's what you can expect. All right, and criticizing the government is going to get you in trouble as well, which is why I'm using certain tools to protect myself. Okay, and let's see here. Let's look at this. This might be interesting. Drop in religiosity. See if we can get that. Drop in religiosity among largest in the world. Okay. Still more important in US than in many OECD countries. OECD countries would be sort of Western Europe, Japan, Korea, Saudi Arabia, and some Middle Eastern countries, etc. The 17-point drop in the percentage of US adults who say religion is an important part of their daily life, from 66% in 2015 to 49% today, ranks among the largest Gallup has recorded in any country over any 10-year period since 2007. Well, that's interesting, from 66 down to 49. I wonder what the cause of that would be. I think the cause is the failure of religions, especially Christianity, but Judaism and Islam as well, but particularly Christianity, to fulfill the mission of religion. And people will say, "Well, I like to read the Bible because it comforts me," and that's the extent of their religiosity, right? They don't believe in salvation, they don't believe in Jesus, but somehow reading the Bible, reading the Gospels, it's comforting to me. But that's not why Jesus came, and that's not why God established religions, just to comfort people. If you want something to comfort you, get yourself a teddy bear. That's what teddy bears are for. Or blankets, carry on a little blankie. But unfortunately, that's the level to which religions have fallen, because they are no longer the revolutionary bodies that they are supposed to be. Religion is supposed to be revolution. revolution against the satanic world, um, the satanic status quo. Right? God, Satan is the god of this world. Jesus said that. Satan is the god of this world. And Christianity is leading a revolution or an insurrection against Satan. It's not just a matter of comforting. About half of Americans now say religion is not an important part of their daily life. They remain as divided on the question today as they were last year. Such large declines in religiosity are rare. Since 2007, only 14 out of more than 160 countries in the world whole have experienced drops of over 15 percentage points in religious importance over any 10-year period. Only a small number of mostly wealthy nations have experienced larger losses in religiosity, including Greece from 2013 to 2023, 28 points, Italy from 2012 to 2022, 23 points, Poland from 2013 to 2023, 22 points. Other countries, including Chile, Turkey, and Portugal, have seen declines similar in magnitude to the U.S. decline. And here, U.S. drop in religiosity among the largest. Okay, and as in U.S. lags behind global median for religiosity, closes gap with OECD. Okay, so I guess it's the poorer countries that still have a lot of religiosity. African countries and Southeast Asian countries, I guess, and also, of course, Middle East countries have very strong religiosity. Many of them do. As religiosity has declined in the US, the gap between the US and the global median has widened. The global median for religiosity has remained stable for nearly 2 decades, averaging 81% since 2007 and reaching 83% last year, the most current full year data available. At the same time, I'd like to see what Korea is. Do they have I don't see here. You probably have to pay money to get the original thing here. Okay, well, here are some countries. Yeah, country data set details. Can we get that? Download file. Well, yeah, okay, let's go ahead and download it. Okay. File. Okay. And let's go to page. Okay, and then let's make this bigger. Okay. What are we looking at here? Number of interviews, design effect, margin of error. Okay. That's not what I want. Okay. Right here. Oh, 42. Mm. We're going year by year here. The methodology. I'm looking for something else, right? Uh, we're going backwards. We went back to the top without my finding what I wanted. Okay. All right. Okay. Give up. Okay. Let's go back into the top. Okay. So here, as religiosity has declined in the U.S., the gap has become wider, okay? And right now, the world average is 83% last year, 81, averaging 81% since 2007. So the world at large is still pretty highly religious. It's just that the United States, Europe, and other countries, other sort of richer countries, are falling behind the the other countries. I don't want to say poorer countries, but yeah, poorer countries. But look at India, for example. I mean, religion plays a huge role in India, even Philippines or Thailand, even I would say Malaysia. Um, these places, religion has a huge role. In Russia, I think, still has the people there have probably much more than the United States anyway. I'd like to see what the number is in Russia. Yeah. Okay, here, across the 38 OECD countries in 2024, a median of 36% of adults said religion is important to their daily lives. The gap between the US and the median for these countries is now narrower than any point in Gallup's trend. So usually the US was ahead of the OECD, more religious than the OECD, but now that difference is narrowing, so falling back towards the number of the OECD as a whole. The long-term decline in religiosity places the U.S. in a unique position on the global religious landscape. Most countries fall into one of four patterns: high religiosity with Christian identity, high religiosity with another religious identity, often Muslim majority, although there are several countries in the Middle East where Gallup does not ask religious identity questions. Yeah, you can get killed there. Low religiosity with Christian identity, or low religiosity with no religious identity. The US no longer fits neatly into any of these categories, having a medium high Christian identity, but middling religiosity. In terms of religious identity, the percentage of Americans is now identifying as Christian is similar to those of Western and Northern European countries such as the United Kingdom, Germany, France, or I'm going to say Finland and Denmark, nations with strong Protestant traditions. Yet religion continues to play a larger role in daily life for Americans than for people in those countries. Conversely, the importance of religion in daily life in the US resembles that of countries such as Argentina, Ireland, Poland, and Italy, where Catholicism is more influential, but significantly fewer Americans now identify as Christian compared with those populations. Okay. Do we get? Oh, look. Oh, wait. Here we go. Here's South Korea. Okay. Religion important, 36%, and Christian, 28%. Christian, 28%. You know, um, I'm laughing because um, a lot of times, where does South Korea go? Okay. A lot of times, Christian pastors or leaders will come to South Korea and they will ask South Korean Christian pastors or leaders, what percentage of the South Korean population is Christian? And apparently, because then sometimes they will come to me and check sort of as a second opinion, right? And apparently they're being told by their Christian, South Korean Christian colleagues that something like 80% of the country is Christian. But Gallup says, what is it, 28%. I usually guess at around 40, maybe 35, 40%, but only Gallup says only 28%. And that's probably right. That's probably right. And religion is important, 36%. That would be Buddhists. Buddhists are pretty sometimes pretty religious. They like to go to various temples and pray and make their financial donations and stuff like that. Um, uh, Confucianism, not so much. And Confucianism, I don't think people who follow Confucianism, I don't think they really regard Confucianism as a religion per se. They regard it more as tradition, just sort of cultural tradition, I guess. The whole venerating the ancestors and even those people who are studying Confucian texts, I don't think they necessarily see it as a religion, more as a philosophy. So basically, you have Christian 28%, and then religion important 36%. I think probably that 36 includes mostly Buddhists other than Christians. Okay. All right, well, great. I found South Korea. Okay. And I'll bet Japan is way, yeah, here we go, yeah. So Christian 3%. Whoa. Usually we say in Japan Christian is 1%, but looks like they tripled. They tripled in influence there. Christian 3%, and religion important at 21%. Okay, again, that's Buddhist, and what else? Shinto to some extent, I guess. The sort of the standard line for Japan is that when the child is born, the parents take the child to a Shinto shrine. When the child grows up and wants to get married, they want to get married in a Christian church. And then when they die, uh, they want a Buddhist priest to perform the funeral. That's usually the way it works. Yes, that's usually the way it works. Uh, but this 3% Christian, that's shocking. Yeah, well, they tripled somehow. All right. Yes, religion is important, but they sort of they take it all in. 21%, 21%. So Japan 21, and then South Korea. What was that? 20. Where was South Korea? Okay, 36% religion is important. Okay. Which ones are the highest? Let's see. Croatia 65, and Romania 76. Wow, good for them. Christian, 98% of Romania is Christian, but only 76 say religion is important. How does that work out? Okay. Romania, all right. That would be an Orthodox Christian, I would guess, right? And Zambia, 97, because that's Christian, okay. And wow, this is a country I don't know, Eswatini. I don't even know what that is. 96%. Okay. I guess God knows where it is. 96% Christian. And Serbia, 90%. So these countries up here are pretty Christian. These are Armenia, 97% Christian. That's, I guess, Orthodox, isn't it? And Colombia, 92%. Of course, that's Catholic. And Ecuador, also Catholic, 88%. Malta, 88%. Cyprus. So these countries may be the ones that inherit the blessing in the future. I don't know. South Korea better get on the ball. 36%. Religion is important. Christian, 28%. All right. But, we were reading earlier in Father's words, right? About Japan being sort of a pagan country. And Christian is 3%. And even 3%, I've never seen Japan record 3% Christian. I don't know what's going on there. Yeah. Okay, I don't know who's growing then. Who's growing? Who's growing in Japan? The evangelicals? I don't know of any Christian church that's actually growing in Japan. Okay. So anyway, the steady decline in U.S. religiosity over the past decade has been evident for years. Fewer Americans identify with the religion, church attendance and membership are declining, and religion holds a less important role in people's lives than it once did. But this analysis of world poll data pulls the decline in a wider context, showing just how large the shift has been in global terms. Since 2007, few countries have measured large declines in religiosity. This means the US lags further behind the global median for religiosity and is drawing closer to the median for other advanced economies. The US increasingly stands as an outlier, less religious than much of the world, but still more devout than most of its economic peers. So less religious than much of the world, but still more devout than most of its economic peers. Okay. Well, it's interesting that they sort of relate religiosity with economic level, and I suppose there is some correlation there, but That's kind of unfortunate. They sort of give this impression that the richer you are, the less religious you are. That's, of course, not the kind of correlation that we like to see. And I don't know if that's really fair to say that. You pray. All right, good, good. That was a okay. That's good. Anyway, it's interesting. It's I don't know how accurate that is, but anyway, it's interesting. It's interesting. It's interesting. All right, let's see here. Let's refresh these stories here. Bring these back for you. Okay. Okay. China yeah, China and Japan right now are having a little spat. Uh, the Japanese prime minister said that, well, if Taiwan is attacked, then that will be a serious situation for Japan, and it might be a situation where the prime minister would have to mobilize the self-defense force. And then the Chinese official said, well, we should cut off the head of the Japanese prime minister, which is not a very diplomatic thing to say. And Japan got angry. China's now angry. And anyway, they're going at each other right now. I'm sure they'll work it out. All right. Ketamine disguised as tea keeps washing ashore on South Korea's Jeju Island. Interesting. Looks like someone lost some luggage at sea, maybe. Trump is committed to $2,000 tariff dividend payments, White House says. Okay, well, I'm not holding my breath. I encourage you. I don't think anyone should hold their breath. We'll see. But not everybody. I don't think he's saying everybody's going to get it. Maybe a few people. Yeah. And this is kind of interesting. So um, uh, a few, I guess about a week or so ago, right? U.S. announced this huge seizure of Bitcoin, $13 billion worth. And um, it was taken from, I guess it was taken from a Chinese person in London. And now China is saying that the U.S. hacked, or they're implying that the U.S. hacked this. So when this news came out, I was wondering how exactly did the U.S. get a hold of that of all that Bitcoin? How did they do that? And I was figuring that, okay, well, maybe during the investigation they must have, interrogating someone, and someone gave up the private keys. That was the only way that I could figure, because we know that the Bitcoin blockchain has not been hacked and has never been hacked, and the U.S. did not hack the Bitcoin blockchain itself. That much I think everyone agrees. So in that case, how did that? But what the Chinese are saying is that the U.S. hacked the sort of the not the exchange but the pool where the Bitcoin was being held. So the Bitcoin was not on sort of a hardware cold wallets, but where it was probably be hack proof, but rather it was sitting on a pool where it is accessible from, or it's vulnerable to online attacks, and that's the Chinese are implying that that's what the U.S. did. Anyway, it's a bit interesting that, and now I think I don't know if it's the British government or the U.S. government that now is holding that Bitcoin, and apparently they're not going to reimburse the people who were victims of the scams that resulted in all this Bitcoin coming together there. So it's an interesting situation. Right now the world financial situation is changing rapidly, and we need to keep up with what's going on so that we can decide if there's anything that we want to get involved with, or what's happening to our, sort of the fiat money that most people have. What's happening to that? Now, Japan in Japan now, there's a company that's issuing stablecoin, a yen-backed stablecoin, not a dollar-backed stablecoin, but a yen-backed stablecoin. And the South Korean government was also doing a CBDC, central bank digital currency. And a lot of things are changing right now, a lot of things. So uh, I suggest that you be aware and, uh, but DYOR, do your own research. I'm not going to recommend anything. I have a hard enough time keeping up with all the changes myself, but we do need to keep up with them. I gave the example one time of when computers first appeared in our newspaper in Korea. When I first started working there, reporters were still writing their um, articles on paper, pen and paper, and then they would give it to someone who would punch it into the electronic system. And then one day there were computers on everybody's desks, and reporters had to learn how to use the computers. And a lot of them complained. Said, this is our kids can learn this, but we're too old. Yeah, I don't think so. We're in our 40s. We don't need to know this stuff. No, I don't think so. I don't think so. Yeah. Now, of course, how long has it been now? 35 or so years later. And it is true that some people I've seen about that age are lucky if they know how to open their email. Those are the people who back then were refusing to learn how to use a computer. So anyway, in a similar vein, okay, in a similar vein, don't say that, I know this is stuff that our kids can learn, but I don't need to learn it. No, you need to learn it. You need to learn it. You need to keep abreast of all the changes and keep your head above water so that you don't get, washed out to sea by all these changes that are happening. Anyway, it is interesting. It is interesting what's going on. So understand what money is. I think that's the key thing to know, and because money itself is changing right now, and uh, uh, we need to just be able to keep our head above water in the midst of all the changes. All right, let's see here. Anyway, China now accusing the U.S. of a $13 billion Bitcoin mining pool hack. And I read the article and they seem to make sense. They seem to make sense. And the U.S. is not saying how it got a hold of the Bitcoin. They're not saying exactly what happened. Uh, I thought that they had somehow gotten hold of the private keys, but maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe China's right here. All right. Well, this is good. Flight reductions to hold at 6% amid rapid decline in controller callouts. Well, that's good. President Trump says he's going to give $10,000 to everybody who was stayed on the job during the 43 days. Yeah. So maybe people are coming back for that. Yes. USD JPY holds near the 9-month high as Japan's fiscal stance weighs on yen. Yes. So this is in other words, the dollar is strong against the yen right now, and the dollar is. Let's see if we can get. Here we go. Okay. Forex dollar. Yeah. So dollar's been around. The DXY, as the dollar index, has been basically at the 99 level for a long time. It can't break through into 100, but it's been between 99 and 100 for several days now. For several days. Right now, it looks like this morning, the dollar is weak against almost all currencies on this list anyway, with the exception of the Indian currency. But anyway, that's just a slice in time right now. It doesn't really mean anything. Yeah. Yeah. But anyway, overall, though, where was I? The dollar is holding near a 9-month high. And that's because there is a strong demand for dollars. In the case of the South Korean currency, The dollar keeps climbing because President Trump is insisting that South Korea invest a total of $350 billion. That means that the South Koreans have to come up with $350 billion somehow. And so they're buying up dollars to invest those in the United States. And that's the reason that the value of the won is going down and the value of the dollar is going up in relation to each other, not necessarily in relation to other currencies. And I don't know what's going on with the Japanese currency. It has something to do with, the expectation of the Federal Reserve cutting rates again in December, and whether that's going to happen or not. And anyway, foreign exchange is uh, it's even much more difficult than regular stock market or even a bond market for people to get in, for amateurs like us to get in. I've never tried to do that. All right, let's see here. What else do we have here? Government shutdown set to end with no deal on Obamacare subsidies. And so this may be resolved in December, or else Obamacare may, or the subsidies may go away. And then without the subsidies, then people will understand the real cost of Obamacare, which is quite higher than people think it is. We'll see what happens there. Okay. All right, and this Visa, MasterCard legal settlement means for your rewards credit card. And also, this is a story that may affect some of us. If you have a credit card, a Visa or MasterCard that has high rewards, in the future, some stores may refuse to accept it because accepting that card, the cards with high rewards, is more expensive for them than other cards. And that's what that story is about. All right. People are still speculating on that, whatever that is. It's 3I, is that the I or the atlas? A 3I atlas. This inter galaxy thing that's flying through space. And there's still some people who think that it's a somehow an alien spaceship or something like that. But I've said many times, even if there are aliens in space that are more advanced than us, than like you see in uh, Star Trek, or places they go to planets and there are these aliens with big heads or small heads or many hands or anything. Even if they do exist, which probably not, but anyway, even if they do exist, they are all part of the creation that God created for the sake of human beings. Even if they are more intellectually advanced, scientifically advanced, that's not the standard by which we decide who is superior. Superiority is decided by who has God's lineage. That's it. That's it. Who is God's son? The rest are all servants. And so we need to make sure that we are God's children, that we are not Satan's children if there are aliens before they contact us. All right. I'm skeptical that there are any out there. I think it's just science fiction, but who knows? Who knows? All right, let's see. Let's go to the Breitbart, and we just have 1 minute remaining. All right, and then here, okay. Breitbart, of course, is gloating about President Trump's victory. Older Dems not fighting need to consider stepping aside, according to this one person. And Democrat strategist laments party consumed by rage and hatred. That's certainly a true statement. And Democratic Congressional Committee standing up, worth it, but it's also GOP's fault. Okay. And let's see here. Chemistry is powering a great American comeback, and so forth and so on. Democrat strategist party must look at non-politician for 2028 nominee. That's interesting because President Trump is a non-politician, and that's why so many people were attracted to him because and that's why so many politicians hated him and still hate him because he's not one of them. All right, gotta go. Today's Thursday, so I'll be here tomorrow and the next day, and then on Sunday I'll be traveling. But tomorrow, the next day, I'll be here. God bless, Godspeed. May His kingdom come quickly.